welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. A couple years ago, I took this cutting and the next one I'm going to do in this video here, and I planted them in this pot, and the other one is still in its same pot too. And the idea was I wanted to keep them relatively small. I've got some bigger ficus now. I don't really need anything bigger. I wanted to keep them relatively small, but the idea was I was going to try to build like a perfect base. I say perfect. A good base for them by just simply not really micromanaging the top so much, but at the same time also repotting at least every year and trying to make sure that I had the roots arranged well and all that. And then I think right away, I think I might have even taken them just before the hurricane, the big one, and then they got basically beat around for that. And then at some point, I'm just kind of like leaving them alone so they build up some health. And then last year, I actually made a video, and somewhere in the title of it or something, I call it, it was a wind desiccation. And it had just burned the leaves off of the top of this one and burned the leaves completely off the other one. In October, I made the video of when I was just trying to dress these guys up a little bit and kind of get them ready to build up some more health. I put this piece of wire on here just simply because this branch was kind of sticking straight up, kind of trying to be the apex. And if you have any, especially smaller trees like this around, you'll notice all the branches just go straight up all the time. But I put the wire on there, and I kind of with the idea of, as soon as I started notice that wire is starting to bite, I'd go ahead and make a video and repot the both of them. And the wire is starting to bite a little bit. It's springtime. It's got a nice little growth spurt going on now and everything. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is just get the wire off. All right, and just a little bit of bite there. Did get a nice little back bud there. That's a branch I'm going to keep. But also just kind of in the name here of getting this guy ready for a repot, I'm going to shorten a couple of these branches up. Probably just that one actually, maybe the apex a little bit. I haven't really looked there yet. Take off some of the lower leaves just so it's got less need for water. This branch, it's not really a branch right now, it's just a twig, but it was coming straight up off of the main one there. And then on the way up the apex here, since I don't plan on, these are way too small to even get any wire on them anyway, but just want to make sure that they're left, right, and not really bar branches or anything. And then there's a good little cluster on top. Just kind of take out the cluster and leave the alternating branches there, and then just some older leaves. All right, and that'll get it repot ready there. And I'm going to go ahead and get the other one and get it ready to repot before I break out the repotting setup here. Alright, then this little guy here, if you noticed all of this up here is really shrunk back. If you go back and watch that old video, these were 3 or 4 inches longer on both sides, and this whole thing it was completely defoliated, didn't have a single leaf on it at all. Almost seemed dead. But I cut the branches back to where the branch still seemed alive, but you can see it died back even further. And of course it died back a little more on that other side than it did on this side. I guess the first thing I'll do is just take those out. Just before I repot it, I'm going to look at it and maybe make some other decisions as to how I'm going to deal with it, depending on what the roots look like. So I'm going to wait until I get it out and see what the roots are. Although this little twig right there is coming right from the base. If you guys can see it coming right from the base there. I'm going to take that out. I know that won't be useful for me right now. I'm having a little hard time deciding. The original plan was, because it kind of grew out like that, I was a little surprised that as large as the base was, that both sides kind of took off when I took the cutting. And then the plan was I was going to let them kind of grow out, and then as it got to a point that I could start styling it some, I was going to make a little twin tree out of both sides, try to style them identical to each other. But now I have like some slight ideas of perhaps maybe just cutting off one of these, and then it could make some interesting movement coming out of the trunk. It really does depend though what I see in the roots when I pull it out, especially depending on which side might be a little bit healthier. I do see evidence of a little bit of thrip on this side here. Thrips, I guess. I guess there is no singular thrip. Little side note for anybody that lives around here, Ficus benjamina and the tiger bark are the only ones for some reason that get affected by thrips for me. First thing though, I'd like to try to save as much of the soil as possible, so I'm going to pop it out in here. I just had to wash this off. I haven't used this little tub for a while. It's covered in spider and dust. Tried to let it dry before I started, but you may notice that it's a little wet. Didn't really do that on purpose. I just don't want to wait any longer. I got some things to do a little later. Alright, so first off, try to knock off as much of this loose stuff as possible. That is about what I thought I would see. It's got the one dominant root, which you guys probably didn't see. You may have noticed that it had a fatter side to it, but you could see just the largeness of that side kind of going on into the substrate there. And then that's most of what's holding on to all that. And then just a couple smaller ones there. Definitely want to try to not damage them at all. I like to keep as much of that as possible. But take a good bit of this one off. You can see this one hit the side of the pot, kind of curled back under. Let's cut that main part off and then see what we've got there. And cut it right at the curve. Take the roots out of the soil I plan on reusing. And not much to it. So, could put it back into this spot here with the idea of just kind of allowing it to keep growing somewhat restricted. You can see that fat side there. I don't know if you guys can quite see what I was talking about there with the fat side. I was up off camera, I think, for a second. Sometimes I forget I get it pointed down a little more when I do this. I do have this old pot here, and actually I think that's going to be the tune there. I really wish I'd have something like this shallow, but a little wider than this. And I do have like some pots that I paid like $80, $90 for like that, but I just wish I had something cheap I could throw it in. But I'm going to do this one here. This one, I don't know what used to be in this one. It's about falling apart. You can see it's pretty worn out there and everything. Let's see. I don't want to have to put a screen in the bottom of it. I pulled most of the roots out of this old substrate here, but you can still see just some smaller particles in there. I'm going to dump that in the bottom and hope too much just doesn't like fall out right out, and it doesn't. And those roots, you know, when you pull it up out of the pot and it was in a perfect square shape, it's got a lot of small roots that'll go right to the edge of the pot, and then just like the one or two that'll keep circling it and everything like you could see. But as soon as that happens, it'll keep it all straight in there. Since this is not for show, and I know this top piece is about to break off soon, I don't want it too high in the pot. All of these roots, because it hasn't been in there all that long, all these roots are spread out pretty nicely. I don't like the way the bigger one's just pointing straight down. But I think now if I give the other the other smaller ones some room to kind of go to the edge of the pot, maybe they'll catch up, especially since the bigger one's been cut. So I'm going to plant it right about that height right there. Just get enough fresh soil in there to hold it steady. All right, let's see here. All right, and that's perfect. Doesn't look all that great because of the old pot, but at the same time, buried it right up to the top of the where the base was before, and again, just give it room to grow. If it was summertime, I probably wouldn't even shade it. I'd put it right out in the sun and just check on it every morning. Problem is, I'm in school till 1:32 almost every day. Today's Sunday, so I'd like to have it in a little bit of shade during the day, just because I can't really keep an eye on it. But I'll see what it looks like when I get home. Probably put it right back on the sun in about a week. All right, and then back to this one here. I thought about doing a different angle while I went ahead and finished pruning it here, but I think you guys can actually see fairly well. This branch has two little small twigs coming off of it, and then basically all of this growth is coming off of a cluster here, probably off of an old chop or prune mark of some sort. This side here is like one or two little branches, and then all of this stuff basically coming off of an old prune mark. And so I'm going to take the burls out, if you will, or the clusters out. Trying to make sure I'm in the right spot here. And then what I was thinking about doing is eliminating one of the sides. If I was going to eliminate a side, I would probably make it this one. But I think I'd like to, because that cut will be really close to the base, I think I'd like to go ahead and let it recover from the repot first. And do the same thing on this one, try to save most of the soil here. This is what I was trying to talk about on the other one. This is see, an interesting little training pots I've been using for some of my smaller cuttings. This is actually one of the wick and grow things where I think that hole is for the wick, and then there's that's supposed to wick up the water that this thing is sitting in. Terrible idea for, you know, anything unless you had like a bald cypress seedling or going in there, some kind of plant that likes staying wet. But the top of that, they're not bad for a little training pot. I might have a wild idea here. Let's see what I'm going to think about doing here. Alright, so I zoomed in a little. I think I'm going to get a little radical with this one here. I'm going to cut this guy off right there. We'll need these long ones on there. And then I really, you know, even though I was thinking I was going to try to make that twin trunk thing out of it, of course, I mean, it didn't work out with all the dieback that it had. But now, you know, two viable trees here, perhaps if I could split it just right. And that's what I'm going to try to do. The best thing about having free material like this is you can do experiments with it. If it doesn't turn out, it doesn't turn out. But I got a feeling that this guy can and will be just fine. So, let's see. All right. So I think both sides of this have held on to enough of their roots. I think they should be fine. I think being that it is early enough in the spring to where it's not super humid yet, I don't think I'll have any fungal issues or anything. I don't really have any fungal issues with any of my trees, honestly. So I'm going to get the short, fatter one right back into the pot it was just in. And actually, since I'm kind of using that older soil to help it all from falling out of the holes there, remember I had another one of these things. And so I'm going to use a little in each one of them. Alright, but let's start with that shorter one here. Shorter one has that bigger root on there. Probably a slightly better chance of survival than the other one, although I think they'll both make it. All right, let's just go ahead and wrap things up here. This guy obviously got that one in a much bigger pot. Got a lot more foliage left. Should be nice and healthy. As soon as I notice shoots start forming, you can pretty much feel when the roots start colonizing the pot. It'll become a lot more sturdy in there. I'll probably get a little bit of wire on it and start pruning a little bit, just kind of depending on how much time I have and what it does. Should be a nice tree in the future, I think. Alright, and then these two guys here. Sometimes when I've been doing some repotting videos and I've got one that I'm not sure is going to make it or not, I'll wait and update it then. I'm 99% certain both these guys will make it. I'll probably try to update all three of these all at the same time. You'll have to stick around and see how they turn out. I don't have enough file space to hold on to these for too terribly long. I do think both of them had plenty of roots to make it. And I'm in the right climate and everything. They should be fine. Only thing now is they may end up with kind of hideous looking bases instead of nice ones like I originally planned. Probably one thing is that I noticed both these split marks are a little above the soil that I have. Couldn't really bury it too much further. They'll probably start getting a bunch of aerial roots coming out of the cambium there. I'll kind of have to decide how high they come up on whether or not I'll cut them off or not. This one isn't quite as high as the other one is. But since I'm pretty sure they'll both make it, I think they'll both make better trees than if I'd have left them together with that big twin trunk the way it was. We'll just have to see what happens.